The reality of the evil eye, or the essence of the evil eye, is that when a person feels jealous or amazed of somebody, instead of feeling a twinge of jealousy or instead of feeling amazement, they actually cause harm to the person that they were feeling that about. Now looking at the hadith and looking at the evidence for the evil eye, I think it is safe to say that not everyone who gives the evil eye is jealous, and not every jealous person gives the evil eye. However, I will make a clear statement that there are some of the scholars of Islam, including the Lajna Da'ima in Saudi Arabia, who do not hold this opinion. And they say every person who gives the evil eye is jealous, that the evil eye only happens through jealousy. However, we're going to look at some of the ahadith which suggest that the second opinion, the opinion that the evil eye can happen through jealousy or amazement, is the correct one of the two, and that the evil eye does not require jealousy, and Allah knows best. In any case, whether it does or it doesn't, the second part is universally agreed upon. Not every jealous person gives the evil eye. Not every jealous person gives the evil eye. You may be jealous of someone, and the only thing that you do is to ruin your deeds in the sight of Allah. And of course, jealousy comes from a lack of belief in qadr. Because if you believed in qadr with true belief, you would never be jealous of anybody. Because you know that whatever was written for you, you have, and whatever was written for them, they have, and there was no way for you to get what they got, and no way for them to get what you got. I think there is a decent body of evidence that it can be given to yourself and to your own children. And this is from the evidence that the evil eye doesn't require jealousy. Because generally, you would not be jealous of yourself. Generally, you'd not be jealous of yourself, but you might be amazed. You know, you come out of the shower, and you've done your hair, and you put on your brand new clothes, and you stand in front of the mirror, and you just look and think, that's amazing. You could afflict yourself with the evil eye. If you don't return it back to Allah, and if you don't return this blessing back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-Imam Ahmad and At-Tirmidhi narrated that Asma bint Umays radiallahu anha said, O Messenger of Allah, the children of Ja'far have been afflicted by the evil eye. Shall we recite ruqya for them? The Prophet ﷺ said, yes, for if anything were to overtake the divine decree, it would be the evil eye. And we have seen cases of the evil eye. And indeed, our shuyukh who we studied from have seen cases of the evil eye that are worse than magic. I mean, you can be talked about completely taken out to the point where you are killed, or the point where you are on your deathbed and you can't even raise your head because of the effect of the evil eye. Signs of the evil eye include somebody with a praiseworthy attribute being afflicted in that attribute, or somebody suddenly becoming sick in a time when people might have seen from them there something positive or something that people would be jealous or amazed of. As an example, the Imam goes to recite the Quran, and he has a beautiful voice, and suddenly after the prayer his face swells up, his throat swells up, he can't speak, he can't read. Or during the prayer, he starts reading Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, nothing else comes out. The evil eye, in my opinion, is easier to diagnose from its symptoms than it is, or its circumstances, than it is to diagnose from the ruqyah. Sometimes you do ruqyah and you think it's magic, and it's not, it's the evil eye. And subhanallah, sometimes the evil eye is easier to diagnose from your understanding of the circumstances. What caused you to be like this? Well, I was stood in prayer and I read Maliki Yawmiddin, and that's it, my throat just seized up. For a lot of people, this is going to relate to the evil eye, i.e. somebody was jealous of their recitation, or amazed of their amazed about their recitation without returning the blessing to Allah or mentioning the blessing of Allah, and they afflicted that individual. Or a beautiful child suddenly becomes very sick. And it might be magic, it might be the jinn. But you see a really beautiful child, and this child has become really sick for no reason, and the sickness is quite incurable. Nobody can find what the sickness is being caused by. Yes, it could be a jinn problem. Yes, it could be magic. But you're thinking a little child, who's going to really, maybe necessarily do magic on a small child? Why the child? Why not the parents? Perhaps the parents are afflicted. And I'm not saying this is a guarantee, but I'm saying this is giving you an inkling in your heart that, okay, I'm thinking this might be the evil eye. Somebody says, yesterday I went out to a wedding, and as soon as I came back from the wedding, I felt extremely ill, to the point where I couldn't raise my head, and my skin came out all blotchy or something like that, or I felt a burning in my face. You suspect the evil eye. It's not guaranteed, but you do suspect it, because they showed their sort of beauty or their sort of appearance in front of everybody, and somebody likely is going to have given them the evil eye. So my advice with the evil eye in general is, it is easier to diagnose from the circumstances than it is to diagnose from the ruqyah. However, diagnosing it from the ruqyah often occurs when you have eliminated jinn possession and magic, i.e. there is no jinn that you can see inside the body of the person, and it's not fitting any of your other cases. It may well be that it's the evil eye. But again, I'm reluctant to give you, if you read this ayah and the person twitches, it's the evil eye. If their face flushes, it's the evil eye. If they yawn, it's the evil eye. These are all things I've heard people say. They're written in some of the books of ruqyah, that if a person yawns when you read the ayah at the end of وَإِن يَكَادُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لِيُزْلَقُونَكَ بِأَبْصَارِهِمْ لَمَّا سَمِعُوا الذِّكْرِ. That if you read this ayah and a person's eye twitches, they've got the evil eye. These are not really very precise. They might be true for some, they might not be true for others. And as Brother Basak said, and this is the reality of the situation, is it's not really going to change anything drastically at the beginning. You're still going to recite Al-Falaq and Al-Nas. You're still going to recite Al-Fatiha. Don't rush. Yes, you may, and someone comes along and says, Brother Muhammad, you haven't told those brothers the truth, because if you knew it was the evil eye, you could treat them with X, Y, Z. I agree with them. I agree with you. But what we're saying is, don't rush. You don't need to rush. So, give yourself some time. Do some recitation. Do some different recitation. Let it go naturally, and eventually you'll come to a conclusion. No, I'm after a few weeks, after a few sessions, I'm fairly sure this is the evil eye. But some of the brothers, as Brother Basak said, they want to compete with the magicians, and so they want to have that instant diagnosis. You go to the magician, and the magician looks at you and says, you have 4 jinn. One of them is from here, one of them is from here, one of them is from here, and they were sent by your uncle or your cousin twice removed, and all of this stuff. People want to be like them. So the Raqi upon the Sunnah does the same thing. People come in, he's like, okay, I'm going to read 3 ayat. I'm going to read an ayah that has the word sihr, and an ayah that has the word ayn or something related to ayn, and an ayah that has the word jinn, and whichever one you twitch in, that's your problem. This isn't really very precise, and it's not very accurate, and it leads the jinn to play with you, because the jinn knows you're like that. The jinn knows it's been sent for magic. All it has to do is just twitch the person's eye. When the word ayn is read, or the word abasar is read, twitch the eye, job done. You've got the evil eye, go home. Don't let the jinn play with you in that regard. As for the evil eye in the Sunnah, and Imam Ahmad and Malik and Nasai ibn Hibban narrated from Sahal ibn Hanif, the Prophet ﷺ came out and travelled with him towards Makkah, until they were in the mountain pass of Al-Kharar in Al-Juhfa. There Sahal ibn Hanif did ghusl, and he was a handsome white-skinned man with beautiful skin. Amr ibn Rabi'ah radiyallahu an, one of Bani Adi ibn Ka'b, looked at him while he was doing ghusl and said, I have never seen such beautiful skin as this, not even the skin of a virgin. And Sahal fell to the ground. Now this hadith, Shaykh Adil and some of the shuyukh we learned from, they said this hadith is another evidence that it is not jealousy that knocked this person down. Because he's not saying words of jealousy. He says, I've never seen anything. Wow, I've never seen anything as beautiful as that. Bang, Sahel hits the ground and he can't even raise his head. They went to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and said, O Messenger of Allah, can you do anything for Sahel? Because by Allah, he can't even raise his head. He said, do you accuse anyone with regard to him? They said, we accuse Amir ibn Rabi'ah, who looked at him. So the Prophet ﷺ called Amir and rebuked him strongly. So note that the Prophet ﷺ didn't say, oh, this isn't your fault. He rebuked him strongly. And he said, why would one of you kill his brother? And this is the evidence that Ayn is powerful. Why would any of you kill his brother? If you see something that you like. Again, notice the Prophet ﷺ didn't say if you see something you are jealous of. If you see something that you like, then pray for blessing for him. And this is the cure to stop afflicting people with the Ayn. And the scholars have varying opinions about how to say it, perhaps the strongest of which is to pray for Allah to bless them. Barakallahu feek, Barakallahu lak, Allahumma barik. You know, one of these words that means, oh Allah bless them. However, I personally believe that whatever you were to say regarding blessings, whatever you were to say regarding the name of Allah, or to affirm that blessings come from Allah would be enough. So to say MashaAllah, Tabarakallah, Allahumma barik lak, Barakallahu feek, Barakallahu lak, anything you say that involves affirming that blessings come from Allah or asking Allah to bless them even more. Then he said to him, wash yourself for him. So Amir washed his face, hands, forearms, knees and the sides of his feet and inside of his lower garment in the vessel. The water was collected, was poured over him, and a man poured it over his head and back from behind. He did that to him, and Sahel got up and joined the people, and there was nothing wrong with him. And this is an authentic hadith. Nothing wrong at all. So the first cure for Ayn is to ask, do we know who might have afflicted the person? Now in this you do not require certainty. Very important. You do not require certainty. It is enough for you to have ghalabatul dhann, to have a feeling about it. You know, that brother, I saw him looking and I don't know, go ask the brother. You're not accusing him. Don't say, Astaghfirullah, what are you doing this, fear Allah. Simply say to him, Akhi, I want you to make wudu. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in some of the ahadith, if someone asks you to make ghusl, i.e. if they ask you to make wudu or ghusl, i.e. they ask you to collect the water because they fear you gave somebody ayn, then do it. Or as he said, ﷺ. So it's not, so it's not allowed if a person comes to you and says, make ghusl, make wudu, it's not allowed for you to refuse. And it's not for you to get angry and say, how could you ever accuse me of giving ayn? Subhanallah, I said barakallahu feek, I said Allahumma barik, I said mashallah, tabarakallah, fear Allah, why are you saying this to me? No, we don't say this. If somebody comes and they say to you, make wudu for me, make ghusl for me, and you can do either. Ghusl is mentioned in the hadith. Wudu is less than that, but sometimes you can't make ghusl and the matter is urgent. You can make wudu inshallah. And you collect the water, do it for a person. If you are stuck between two, let's say 3 people in the room, one of them drops down with ayn, get both of them to do it. At the end of the day, why are you going to subject that brother to ruqyah for 6 months or a year to get rid of a problem that you could have got rid of by just collecting somebody's wudu water, their wudu water? At the end of the day, don't go that far, especially when it happens, there's a small group, 5-6 people, just get them all to make wudu. Or if you accuse somebody because you believe that was the person because they said something like, wow, you've lost weight, bang, the person just drops on the floor. And remember, you may be afflicted in the attribute, so bang, their stomach may just zoom out. And that does happen. The stomach may just go bang, out. When someone says, wow, you've lost weight, straight away they just become fat in an instant. Or they may become afflicted like Sahel in the whole body, just drop down, can't raise their head, or I feel so ill. Okay, no problem, Bismillah. make the wudu, collect the water. So you're making wudu, you're collecting the drops of the water off the skin into a bucket. If you make ghusl, you need to do it somewhere where you can collect the water. So either in a bath, put the plug in, or something like that where you can collect the water, or stand inside of a bucket and just, make your ghusl over you. Then take the water out of it and pour the water from the back over the person's head and down their back. Inshallah, they'll be absolutely fine. Shaykh Ali ibn Ghazi, Hafidhullah Ta'ala, told me a story that happened to his little girl. He said she was playing with her cousins and suddenly her hair started to fall out in clumps. And don't think everyone whose hair falls out has an ayn problem. We have one little extreme when it comes to ayn. Like, I tend to get, the auntie who comes and says, son, my son's not doing very well in school and I think he has nazar. And I say to, subhanallah, okay, let me talk to him. And you talk to him and you see he's just lazy. The bro just don't want to work. He doesn't want to revise. I say, auntie, he doesn't have nazar, but he has just, he just needs to work a little bit harder. So, be balanced about it. But the sheikh said her hair unnaturally started to just come out. Little girl, I don't know, she's not very old, she's only little. Her hair came out in clumps, big clumps of hair just started to fall out till her hair completely almost fell out. I don't remember if he said all of it fell out or a large amount of it fell out. So the sheikh, he said again that he read over her, he read ruqya over her because he didn't know who it was, and it transpired through talking to her that her cousins had been playing with her and one of her cousins had said to her, "You've got pretty hair." And her hair started to fall out. So the sheikh said, we found out what it was, we were able to advise the family and we were able to tell them. And of course, if you know that you give ayn to somebody, then you must be extra cautious with regard to saying invoking Allah's blessings, mashallah, tabarakallah, Allahumma barik, and so on and so forth. Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah said regarding the statement of Allah, وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ, from the evil of the envier when he envies. The word hasid is more general than the word a'in. The word hasad or jealousy is more general than the word ayn. So seeking refuge with Allah from the one who envies includes seeking refuge from the one who puts ayn on another. The ayn is like an arrow which comes from the soul of the one who envies, and the one who puts ayn on the other or on another towards the one who is envied and on whom the ayn is put. So it's like an arrow that goes from your soul to attack them. Sometimes it hits them and sometimes it misses. If the target is exposed and unprotected, it will affect him. But if the target is cautious and armed, the arrow will have no effect and may even come back on the one who launched it. So Ibn al-Qayyim gave a very clear understanding that it's not necessarily jinn related. Although the jinn can follow the ayn, the jinn can attack somebody, the ayn could make someone vulnerable to the jinn. You often get people who have ayn and jinn problems, ayn and magic problems. But the ayn is like the arrow, might hit, it might miss. But if you're cautious with your adhkar, then indeed you'll be protected. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, and indeed those who disbelieve would almost make you slip with their eyes when they hear the message and they say indeed he is mad. And Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen rahimahullah ta'ala used this ayah to prove that non-Muslims can give ayn to others. As we said, ayn is easier to diagnose from symptoms than it is from ruqya, but it is possible. And generally, if you've had ayn, you know how it feels. Me personally, my face starts to flush, go red, and I feel it like I've been hit with something, like you feel like you've been hit with something and you become, sort of agitated and you recognize that it's ayn. And this is the last point that I wanted to make. Does ayn happen to objects? Yes, it does. We asked this question to our Shaykh Adil, Hafidhahullah. He said yes, but the ayn that happens to objects is related to the individual. So again, I know a brother says to me, got a brand new car. When I drove, I overtook a friend of mine on the road and I waved to him. Bang, my engine went out. So he didn't think it was anything wrong with his car. He just thought regular. He's not one of those people who says everything is ayn. So he pulled over. He said, oh, subhanallah. Got his engine repaired. 2 days later, the engine's out again. Got a brand new engine put in. Maybe I got a dud. The guy didn't do it. He said he complained. He said you didn't put a good one in. Whatever. Got another engine put in. Everything checked. Fine. Bang. Engine runs out again. The brother's been afflicted by ayn because of the car is showing the effect, but the ayn was done on the brother. You don't read on the car, you read on the brother. But if you were to, if you had the ayn water, you could try throwing it over the car, but you don't do ruqya on the car, sit there, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, but you do ruqya on the individual that owns it. Couple of last points, very, very, very quickly. Aynul Jinn, some of the scholars affirm, and there are some ahadith that indicate that the jinn can give ayn, and Allah knows best. Ayn followed by the shaitan. Again, there is a weak hadith for this, but it does seem to be true that you get ayn and it can be followed by a jinn. So ayn, and then you get a jinn afflict you as well. And you get something that's close to sihr, which is paid ayn. People who know they give ayn and learn to control it and actually take money to give ayn to other people. And that is very close to sihr and has a similar ruling to sihr.